My name is Claire. I'm 34 years old, and for the longest time, I believed that hard work and loyalty could fix anything. I thought that if I gave enough, sacrificed enough, and poured every ounce of myself into love, then love would hold. That's what I grew up watching in my parents' marriage, and I carried that belief into my own. But I learned the hardest way possible that sometimes no matter how much you give, it is never enough for someone who doesn't value you. I used to spend my days running from meeting to meeting, deadlines pressing down on me, emails piling up in my inbox. By the time I got home, my body was drained, but my heart always tried to stay full. I told myself that the exhaustion was worth it because I was building something solid, something lasting for us. I thought my sacrifices would speak louder than my words. He was always on my mind when I traveled for work. I brought home gifts, planned little surprises, organized weekend trips to remind him I cared. None of it was perfect, but I believed love didn't have to be perfect, it just had to be real. And mine was real, every single piece of it. But lately things had felt wrong between us. At first I brushed it off. We had only been married 2 years, maybe this was just how routines settled in. Maybe he was stressed, maybe I was overthinking. Deep down though, I felt it, the distance, the way his eyes no longer lingered on me, the way his words grew shorter, colder. I told myself if I just tried harder, he'd see me again, he'd remember us, he'd choose us. One evening, desperate to pull us back together, I decided to do something special. I spent hours in the kitchen cooking his favorite meal, chicken parmesan with garlic mashed potatoes. I lit candles, dimmed the lights, picked a playlist of songs he used to love. I wanted the night to whisper, "I see you. I miss you. I'm still here." When he walked through the door, I swear for a moment I saw surprise flicker across his face. He smiled, kissed my cheek, sat down. For a brief, fragile moment, I believed maybe this would work. We laughed. He even said the food tasted better than he remembered. My chest ached with hope, but hope is cruel when it sets you up for a fall. After his third glass of wine, the mask slipped. His words grew looser, sharper, until finally he looked me in the eye and said something that shattered every bone in my body, without laying a hand on me. "I've never really been attracted to you." I froze, my fork clattering against the plate. My mind screamed, "This can't be real, he's drunk, he doesn't mean it." But he wasn't finished. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand like he was sharing a casual story, and he described the kind of woman he really wanted, someone rougher, darker, wilder. Everything I wasn't. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he told me about her. The woman who fit his type. The one he couldn't resist. The one he had already given pieces of himself to that should have been mine. I sat there nodding like a fool as my heart cracked wide open. He laughed softly with pity in his eyes, as if he expected me to understand. To accept that I was safe, gentle, convenient, but never enough. That night, lying in bed beside him, his words replayed in my head like a cruel tape. "Not my type. Never attracted to you. I found someone else." The betrayal didn't scream, it whispered, casual, cold, like it was nothing. And in that whisper, something inside me died. By sunrise, I knew there was no fight to be had. He had already made his choice, and in that choice, I finally saw the truth. I wasn't his partner. I was his placeholder. He didn't deserve my rage, he didn't deserve my tears, he didn't even deserve the closure of my voice. So I vanished. I left no note, no goodbye, no explanation. Just silence. I made calls to my lawyer, to my accountant, to my family. I cut every tie that bound me to him. By the time he realized what had happened, the divorce papers were already on their way. No arguments, no pleas, no long speeches, just a cold reality he couldn't twist with his words. For weeks I heard he tried to reach me, calls, emails, even showing up at my lawyer's office. But I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He had already told me everything I needed to know. He begged for explanations, but what could I possibly explain? That I had believed him, that I had built my world around someone who casually admitted I was never enough. No. He could live with his truth, I would live with mine. And yet, as much as I wanted to slam the door on that chapter, the pain didn't vanish with the paperwork. Every night, I wrestled with his words. Every morning, I woke up to the echo of his laugh. Love had once been the heartbeat of my life, and now it was the knife lodged in my chest. I thought disappearing would free me. I thought walking away without a word would let me take back some of the dignity he stripped from me. But the truth is, pain follows you no matter how far you run. His voice still echoed in my head like a curse. I was never attracted to you. At work, I buried myself in projects, in long hours, in anything that could drown out the silence when I came home. People told me I looked thinner, more tired, but I forced a smile and said I was fine. No one knew that the moment I stepped into my empty apartment, the weight of what he said pressed down on me like a boulder. I'd sit on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, replaying every memory of our marriage. Every kiss, every embrace, every I love you that now felt like a cruel performance. Had he been lying from the start? Was I blind, or worse, was I simply convenient until someone better came along? Those questions gnawed at me and no answer ever came. I wanted to scream at him, to demand why he stayed if I was never enough. But I had already chosen silence, and now I had to live with it. My parents tried to console me, but even they didn't know the full story. How could I tell them that the man they had welcomed into our family, the man they believed was my partner in life, had admitted in a drunken haze that he was never really mine? To tell them would be to expose my own shame, my own failure, and I couldn't bear to see disappointment in their eyes. So I carried it alone. Nights were the worst. That was when my mind replayed every detail of that dinner. The way he swirled the wine in his glass, the smirk tugging at the corner of his lips, the casual cruelty of his confession, as if I should nod and thank him for his honesty. I remember clutching the tablecloth so hard, my knuckles went white, trying to steady myself while my world collapsed, and when he went to bed snoring as if nothing had happened, I lay awake beside him with my chest tight, fighting tears until the sky turned gray. I wondered about her. The woman he claimed was his type. Was she everything I wasn't? Did she know about me? Did she laugh at me the way he did? The thought of them together burned in my stomach like acid. But worse than jealousy was the realization that he had already given her something he had withheld from me: desire, passion, the kind of fire I had begged for but never received. I told myself I left because I was strong, because I deserved more. But in the quiet hours I questioned whether I left because I was weak, because I couldn't face him, couldn't fight for myself, couldn't force him to see me. And then the anger came. Anger at him for treating me like a placeholder. Anger at myself for staying as long as I did. Anger at love for being nothing more than a lie I had built my life around. Months passed, but the wound never healed. Friends told me I was glowing again, that I seemed lighter without him. They saw the polished mask I wore in public, but they didn't see me at midnight curled up on the floor clutching my chest as the words replayed like a cruel mantra: never attracted to you. But slowly something inside me began to shift. The silence that once felt unbearable became a strange kind of comfort. No more waiting for footsteps at the door. No more holding my breath wondering if I was enough. For the first time in years, the only voice in my home was mine, and in that silence I began to hear something new. A whisper that maybe his cruelty wasn't a reflection of me but of him. Maybe the truth wasn't that I was unworthy of love, but that he was incapable of giving it. That thought was fragile, like a flicker of light in a dark cave, but I clung to it. Because if I didn't, I would drown in the belief that I was broken beyond repair. Still, the scars remained. Every time I saw a couple laughing in the street, I felt the sting. Every wedding invitation that arrived in the mail twisted the knife deeper. Love had betrayed me, and I didn't know if I would ever trust it again. But deep down, I also knew that disappearing wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of something I hadn't yet discovered. And one day when our paths crossed again, I would see just how much had changed. It was almost a year later when fate decided to twist the knife. I had built a fragile peace for myself, a routine of work, quiet evenings, and the slow rebuilding of a life I thought had been destroyed. Then one afternoon, while rushing through the grocery store, I saw him. He was standing by the produce section laughing with a woman at his side. Her. I didn't need confirmation, it was the way he looked at her. His eyes sparkled in a way they never had with me. His hand brushed hers lightly, casually, yet filled with a kind of intimacy that was undeniable. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I thought I might collapse right there between the apples and oranges. He didn't notice me, or maybe he did, and simply didn't care. That hurt more than anything. To him I was invisible, erased, a chapter closed. Watching him like that, I felt the betrayal all over again, as raw and sharp as the night he confessed. I turned and left the store, my groceries abandoned, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out the world. For days after I spiraled, I thought I had healed, thought I had moved forward, but seeing them together reopened every wound. I imagined their laughter in their kitchen, their hands entwined as they walked down the street, his head resting on her shoulder, the way it never did with mine. The jealousy was suffocating, but beneath it lay something deeper: grief. Not for him, not even for us, but for the woman I had once been, before all of this, hopeful, trusting, innocent. She was gone, and I didn't know if I'd ever get her back. Then one evening, as I sat with a glass of wine in my tiny apartment, a message arrived on my phone. It was from him. My heart raced as I read the words, "I owe you an apology." I stared at the screen, anger and longing colliding in my chest. Did I want his apology? Would it fix anything, or would it only reopen the wound I was desperately trying to close? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. We chose a quiet coffee shop far from where either of us lived. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. He looked healthier, happier, confident in a way I had never seen before. He smiled when he saw me, but it wasn't the smile of a man in love, it was the polite smile of someone facing a past mistake. He sat down across from me, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. Finally he spoke. He admitted he had been cruel, reckless, drunk, and selfish. He said he had never meant to hurt me the way he did, that the words slipped out without thought. But even as he spoke, I realized something: he wasn't apologizing to win me back. He was apologizing to free himself, and that was when I felt it, that deep, bone-deep truth I had been avoiding for so long. He wasn't my closure. He wasn't my healing. He wasn't the ending or the beginning of my story. He was simply a man who broke me, and I was the woman who learned how to rise from it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel longing. I didn't even feel jealousy. I felt nothing, and that nothing was everything. It was freedom. I told him I accepted his apology, but I didn't forgive him, not yet, maybe not ever. Forgiveness wasn't about him anymore, it was about me, and I wasn't ready to let go of the pain because it had shaped me. It had forced me to confront who I was, who I had been, and who I wanted to become. When I left the coffee shop, the air felt lighter. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. For the first time since that night at the dinner table, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. But life has a way of testing your strength the moment you think you found it. Because just when I thought I had closed the chapter, another twist came, one that would shake me in ways I never saw coming. Not long after that meeting, I thought I had finally settled into peace. His apology had given me clarity, not comfort. I thought I was done with him, done with the weight of his betrayal. But life doesn't hand you clean endings. Sometimes it tests you with echoes of the very pain you thought you'd buried. It happened one evening when I was out with a coworker. We'd finished a late project and decided to grab dinner at a quiet restaurant. The moment I stepped through the door, I froze. There he was again, sitting at a corner table, the same woman by his side. But this time they weren't laughing. Their voices were raised sharp enough to slice through the hum of the room. I tried to look away, tried to pretend I hadn't seen, but then I heard it. Her voice trembling and angry. "You told me she didn't matter. You told me she was nothing." My chest tightened as the words pierced me. I was the she. I was the ghost haunting their table. He looked panicked, leaning toward her, whispering something I couldn't hear, but her eyes darted around and suddenly they landed on me. For one horrible second our gazes locked. Her face twisted in recognition, then rage. She stormed out, leaving him sitting there pale and shaken. And then he stood. He actually started walking toward me. My body screamed to run, but my legs betrayed me, frozen in place. "Claire," he said softly, as if my name itself was fragile. Please, can we talk? Every cell in my body wanted to scream no. But some dark, curious part of me stayed seated, watching him slide into the booth across from me. My coworker excused herself quickly, sensing the storm brewing. He looked tired, older than the man I had seen at the coffee shop. His confidence had cracked, and in its place was desperation. He admitted the other woman, the one he claimed was his type, the one who had stolen what was mine, was gone. She had left him furious that I still haunted the corners of their relationship. And then he said the words I never expected to hear: "I miss you." The audacity of it nearly knocked the breath out of me. This man who had shattered me with his confession, who had humiliated me with his betrayal, who had lived freely while I crawled through the ashes, he had the nerve to tell me he missed me. I wanted to laugh in his face. I wanted to spit out every cruel word he once used against me. Instead, I sat there in silence, letting him ramble. He talked about how she had never really understood him, how I had been patient, steady, safe. How he regretted what he said that night. How he wished he could take it back, but his words no longer had power. Each sentence bounced off me like dull stones, unable to wound me the way they once did. Because finally I saw him for what he was: not the man who had destroyed me, not the man who had power over my worth, but just a weak, flawed person who had thrown away something precious and was now drowning in his own regret. I leaned forward, my voice calm, steady, almost eerily quiet. "You don't miss me. You miss the way I made you feel. You miss the loyalty you could never give back. You miss the safety of my love, the one thing you never deserved. But me? No. You don't miss me." His face fell, and for the first time I saw pain in his eyes. Real pain. He opened his mouth to argue, but I didn't let him. I stood, smoothed my coat, and looked at him one last time. "I don't belong to your story anymore," I said, "and you don't belong to mine." Then I walked away, leaving him behind in that restaurant, drowning in the wreckage he created. My heart was pounding, but not from fear, not from pain, from freedom. For the first time, I felt the weight of his betrayal lift off my shoulders. That night as I lay in bed, tears slipped down my cheeks, not from grief but from release. The chapter was closed, truly closed, not because he gave me closure, but because I chose it for myself. And yet even in that freedom, there was an ache, a reminder that scars don't vanish just because you've healed. They stay etched into your skin, a testament to what you survived. In the weeks that followed, I replayed that last encounter in my mind, but not with the torment I used to. This time, I replayed it with strength. Every word I had spoken in that restaurant echoed like a shield around me. "I don't belong to your story anymore." It wasn't anger that filled me when I thought of him, it was clarity. I realized then that closure doesn't come from the apologies we crave or the explanations we think we deserve. Closure comes the moment you finally see someone for who they are and accept that their choices are not reflections of your worth. That night at the restaurant, I wasn't the broken woman he had mocked. I was a woman who had survived, who had rebuilt herself from the ashes of betrayal, who no longer needed his validation to stand tall. Still, healing is never a straight line. There were mornings when the memory of his laughter came back like a blade against my chest. Nights when loneliness whispered in my ear, asking if I had made the right choice. But each time I reminded myself that love built on cruelty is not love at all, it is a prison. And I had walked free. My life now is quieter, simpler. I don't have the grand gestures or the fairy tale story I once dreamed of, but I have peace. I find joy in little things: the warmth of morning coffee, the comfort of books stacked on my nightstand, the freedom of knowing I answer only to myself. And slowly I've started to believe that maybe one day, love will find me again. Not the kind of love that burns with lies and betrayal, but the kind that nurtures, respects, and endures. When I look back on everything, the betrayal, the cruelty, the shame, I no longer see them as scars meant to weaken me. I see them as the fire that forged me. Yes, I lost a man I thought I loved, but in losing him, I found myself. And maybe that's the lesson I want to leave behind. Sometimes the people we give our hearts to will break them carelessly. Sometimes the love we thought would last forever will vanish in a single drunken confession. And sometimes the life we thought was over is only just beginning. If you are listening to my story and you've ever felt that kind of heartbreak, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, please hear me. Their betrayal does not define you. Your worth is not measured by their blindness. You are more than the pain they caused. You are more than the lies they told. You are more than the love they failed to give. The greatest revenge against betrayal is not hate, and it is not anger. It is building a life so full of strength, dignity, and peace that the person who once tried to break you becomes nothing more than a shadow in your story. So here I am, standing in my truth, no longer invisible, no longer broken, no longer his. And for the first time in a long time, I can finally breathe. If my story touched something in your heart, I'd be grateful if you'd stay with me. Please like this video if you felt the pain and the healing in my words. Share it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone. Subscribe for more stories that dig into the scars we carry and the lessons they leave behind. And most of all, leave a comment below. Tell me your story, your survival, your strength. Because when we share these truths, we remind each other that even in our darkest nights, we are never truly alone.